There is no off season. There's only time for better mashups. And that is what we're about to do, not just now, but for the next several weeks, because Zero Blitz is about to be even better than ever. All right, so this is the combination episode. Look, we're going to start doing this fancy thing where we combine Zero Blitz and inside coverage, which means Frank and I get to hang out with a different one of our experts. So there's a rotation here. I'm not sure how C-Rob and Jory got this lucky, but Charles Robinson hanging out with us, Frank Schwab, Jason Fitz. Gentlemen, I just want to peek behind the curtain. C-Rob's mic wasn't working beforehand, and there were massive storms in Nashville where I currently am yesterday, and I don't think the internet's necessarily fixed. So this could be a wild adventure. C-Rob, are you ready to be the superstar we need you to be when inevitably the internet drops out and this becomes your podcast?
No, I'm kidding. I can totally hear you. I'm just screwing with you guys right now.
Oh my God.
For those who don't have the visual of it, it was me pretending to not be able to hear and also
that's usually what you did to me for every Sunday for a couple seasons. So I'm used to that. Yeah, no big deal.
It feels good. The three of us going to get to hang out, and we're going to do a rotation, see Rob and Jory, and that way we can get you all your news throughout the course of the entire week. So I feel pretty excited about this, but see, Rob, you just got to be ready because Frank and I basically only agree on everything. So you're going to have to come right into the pocket and agree with us if that's, that's just the only
I can guarantee you that me and Charles will not agree on everything. That was, I don't know if we agreed on anything, which it's fine. That's why I love Charles.
That's what we agree on, that we never agree on anything.
Yes, there you go. There's one thing, one common ground.
Look, I appreciate that. By the way, did everybody have I took a little vacation for a few days. I was out. Did everybody have a nice post-draft? Like, we feeling good, Frank? Like, you get re-energized post-draft? Like, you're no saying yes, ready for more football talk?
Yeah, Kentucky Derby last weekend. First time doing that. Pretty fun. I can't lie to you. I did not really see that photo finish because it's really weird to be at the Kentucky Derby and the race is like you can't really see what's going on that well. But drinks were had. Drinking a shot, I think, happened a few times, Fitz. So yeah, that was fun. I did enjoy it.
Did you wear a fancy hat? It was Frank
Schwab.
A
lot of fancy hats. Are we not Facebook friends? Are you just don't check Facebook?
I'm never on Facebook. I'm never on Facebook. Okay.
I'll send you. I had a fancy hat. Of course I had a fancy hat. What are you talking about?
Instagram is far more like hit me on Instagram. I'm far more into that. You do like I could see you getting all like dressed up. I went to Vegas to go check out Lovers and Friends, the music festival, only to have it canceled the night before. At 10 p.m. the night before, Wind canceled it, which is y'all, I've been a part of that conversation before. Like canceling a show is a really big deal, but like I think that the in the weeds portion of this is it's really about insurance payouts. Like whoever decides to cancel it, their insurance has to pay for it. So I was a little stunned that at 10 p.m. the night before, like if you already made it to 10 p.m. the night before, make it to 10 a.m. the next day. Just like at least see, because the weather was, now I walked around the strip and I was like, it's a beautiful day in Las Vegas. Little wind every once in a while, but I was denied my opportunity to see like 50 different acts in one day over a 12-hour period, like it culminating with Janet Jackson at the end of the evening. So, little bumped, but I think it's weird when Frank's suddenly at the Kentucky Derby and I'm at an R&B festival. I don't know what's happening in Vegas. Go ahead, C-Rob. You look curious.
Why wouldn't you want the cancellation the night before? Like, don't you want to know you're not doing anything the next day?
No, I wanted. Yeah, but my thing is like you wake up the next day and you're like, hey guys, it's not that bad. Maybe because they canceled it because of the forecast of dangerous levels of wind, which ever since, Sugarland tragedy years ago at the Indiana State Fair, acts take that very seriously because you don't want the stage to collapse, God forbid, right? So my thing is like if you're canceling it for wind, at least make sure like the weather guys aren't right like 4 minutes before. So at least like that extra 12 hours, I don't know, man. That's See, you're right, C-Rob. I could see that, but also this was sneaky. All the clubs, the day clubs and everything, they jacked their prices on that day because they knew that, like, all of a sudden, like you've got Robin Thicke appearing over here, and it's like everywhere we turned, it was it was just chaos and expense everywhere. So I don't know. C-Rob, you do anything fun? Any horses or hip hop parties?
I'm way outclassed in this conversation. I did nothing. I've done nothing.
Nothing.
I've done nothing. And I've been happy to do nothing, frankly.
Sounds beautiful. That sounds beautiful.
This is my favorite part of the NFL schedule when there's very little going on and you just get a chance to relax a little bit. So
I know we're about to look at quarterback situations, but you just said schedule. Can I just 30 seconds here on a soapbox? The NFL schedule release is the dumbest thing in the world. And I say that knowing we're going to do an emergency pod afterwards. I'm going to do all sorts of video content. But like, y'all, I can Google right now Raiders opponents in 2028, and all but 3 of them are set. So all we're really worried about is whether the game is in September or December or where somebody has a long road trip. Or it's just the stupidest thing in the world to me that we get so up in arms over. When's the schedule coming out? I'm out. And then this is what everybody's going to do. All right, everybody's going to play the schedule game where they'll look at it and be like, all right, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. A year ago right now, we thought the Texans were going to be trash. Everybody counted that as a win. So, like, even that exercise is absolutely asinine. The NFL season changes too much. C-Rob, I'm out on the schedule release.
Yeah, it's I've never liked the schedule release, to be honest with you. I've always felt like it's been way overdone, and it's a manufactured holiday. I think it's the worst manufactured day by the NFL, by far. I don't even think it's close because of the fact that we know so much of it in advance anyway.
I'm gonna just say I don't mind it. I get excited. I'm like, ooh, this team's playing each other week 1. Oh, that's the Monday night game. Oh, the Chiefs are gonna play the Bengals on week. I actually like it. I'm sorry I bought in. I actually enjoy it.
But it doesn't ever. Okay, so remember the first Amazon slate, right? The first Thursday night slate that Amazon had, and we were like, oh my God, what a murderer's row of games.
Yeah.
And they were shit.
Come on. They turned out terribly. Yeah.
And we pumped how much crap into talking about that stupid slate all the way up until the season started, and then it was all wrong. So I think it's just absolutely ridiculous.
I think you guys are wrong. I just think you're wrong. Like, you guys are haters on the schedule release. Like, I want to know who plays on Thanksgiving. I want to know. I think the Christmas games are dumb, but that's a topic for another day. But what's wrong with schedule release? I'm
Christmas Day games are perfect. The Raiders won last year. That was the best.
Christmas Day games on two Christmas Day games on a Wednesday. No, that is not what we wanted, Roger Goodell. Not happy about that as somebody who has to cover the NFL.
But my choice is watch 2 Christmas Day NFL games or 2, what we now know even to a larger degree, or 3 meaningless NBA games. Like the NBA game, they're always like, oh, Christmas Day is the start of the NBA season. No, it's not. The NBA playoffs are the start of the NBA season. Like, I just, okay, great. You're going to give me Bucks Lakers on Christmas Day. What in the hell is that going to have to do with absolutely anything? So, I think at some point, that there's a logic for me of I would just rather watch football than watch meaningless NBA games. So I think look, C-Rob is barely in the show, and now all of a sudden we're 6 minutes in. Frank and I are fighting for the first time.
This is him. He's an agitator. That's just what Charles does, man.
A fecal disturber, as they say, instead of a shit stir, you can just say fecal disturber. There we go. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do today. And we're gonna see. Rob's disappointed I brought
only because you do the poop stuff on this show too.
Yeah, well, I'm a one-trick
we get way more baby making than poop on when me and Fitz. So we go off the rails. I don't know where the rails are, but Fitz has never been on them. No matter the show, really.
Look, I have the gift of seeing the line, acknowledging the line, and then crossing it entirely too often. I get that. All right. So, and by the way, I already asked about your no place to saying yes. So I've gotten baby making and poop into the first 6 minutes of this show. Who else is doing that? All right. No other broadcast channel is doing that consistently. Okay. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at quarterback situations that we're interested in or that we're scared about, kind of the highs and lows going into the season. Now, because we don't want to waste our time talking about the very obvious ones or make everybody's eye rolls, we're leaving some of these teams out. So we're excluding teams like the Chiefs, who I think we can acknowledge have a pretty good situation. I think we're excluding teams like the Ravens, the Bengals, the Texans, the Chargers, the Packers, the Lions. All of them have been excluded, all right? So what we're really looking at are what are the quarterback situations for certain teams that we're either very worried about or we're worried about or interested in. We're going to start with worry because we like everybody to be in a panic situation. So we've each picked a few. I think we should just go around with one and then we'll go around with another. So Frank, give me the first quarterback. When I say quarterback situation that you're worried about, the first team that comes to mind is...
Well, maybe it's just because I've been living here for the past 8 years when they've been struggling to find a quarterback. But the Denver Broncos are the one that is just still kind of a fire alarm to me. Bo Nix could be good. I'm not as down on that pick as everybody seemed to be, but the fact of the matter is they overdrafted the 6th quarterback off the board in a draft. That's just, you have to acknowledge that. And now you have a quarterback room of an overdrafted Bo Nix, the 6th best quarterback in the class, Jared Stidham, and Zach Wilson. We know what the latter two are bringing to the table. Maybe Bo Nix works out great. Maybe this thing finally gets on track. But I also wonder, if Bo Nix doesn't work, are they just drafting another quarterback next year? Is Sean Payton just going to bounce and say, whatever, I'm going back to Fox. I don't care. The Broncos have been on this really, really awful carousel for 8 years as their penance for getting that Super Bowl when Peyton Manning had a 69 rating and was a shell of himself. And they have just trotted out the worst quarterbacks you can imagine through an 8-year stretch in the NFL. And I don't know that it's any better. I don't, maybe it will. I like Bo Nix well enough, but I sit here and I say, is this the next chapter? Or 5 years, we're going to be like, remember when they had Bo Nix and he lasted 4 starts and then they cut him the next year? I don't know that they fixed it, and it's very worrisome because they got to get off this carousel at some point.
Okay. Why are you already saying nonsensical things?
First off, what is nonsensical about this?
They're not. In what world does a first-round drafted quarterback get cut the next year?
Josh Rosen, he got traded. Okay, he got traded.
He got traded for a 2nd-round pick. What the hell are you talking about?
Fine, we're gonna trade. But if you're trading Bo Nix in a year, it's
okay. Then don't say, okay, we're going to be talking about. Remember that time they started Bo Nix for 4 games and cut him the next year? Come on, man. Okay,
but don't you agree? Like, he could be Josh Rosen.
At least talk in real scenarios.
Don't you think he could be Josh Rosen?
Of course, he could be Josh Rosen, and the Houston Texans could have been shit last year, and you're sitting there going, they're trading a top 5 pick to acquire a defensive end, and then that didn't happen. So, let's just stop with the creating the scenarios that could be or can't be or might be, and just stick to reality. Sean Payton got the quarterback he wanted, right? At least it's Sean's.
That's what he says.
It's Sean's quarterback.
What coach or GM has ever stood up there and said, that's not the guy I wanted, but I had to settle? Like, everybody says that's the pick I wanted. Pick number 230, they're saying that's the exact guy we wanted.
I can tell you that what's been reported is true. They didn't tell anyone outside of the big 3. It was Penner, Payton, and Payton knew the pick. Those are the 3 guys who knew the quarterback. They didn't tell anybody else on their staff. That's real. So that part that's been reported is accurate. He fits Sean Payton's offense, and he's fit Sean Payton's offense for a long time, going back to, I don't know, prior to the college season starting, and people going, look at what Bo Nix does well at Oregon. If he can replicate that another year, that fits really well in terms of the things that Sean Payton wants his quarterback to bring to the table. That makes sense. They didn't just draft a quarterback where you look at it and you go, man, that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, who's the last quarterback who's been 50% running and 50% passing that Sean Payton? That's not what Bo Nix is. He's very much, in terms of the skill set, right down the pipeline of what Sean Payton wants from a quarterback. He'll go out there and he'll execute it exactly as he's told. They're not going to do wild and crazy stuff. He's actually going to run the football when he's told to run the football, unlike Drew Brees in the latter stages of his career with Sean. I don't understand why people are hammering this pick at this point. And by the way, what the hell were they going to do if they weren't going to draft him? What are they going to do? You're going to go out there with Jarrett Stidham?
I understood the pick.
Carson Beck next year? Is that what you're going to roll the dice on? Shedeur Sanders, who wait until all the actual opinions come out on Shedeur Sanders being a potential first-round pick. He's not. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't get the banging on a guy when he fits the scheme, he fits the coach, and it was a need.
Yeah, but I think at some point, 2 things can be true at once. Like, just because you're lonely, you don't get married, right? Like, just because you need a quarterback doesn't mean that you have to draft the 6th best quarterback in this year's class, if that's what, where he played out on their board.
Okay, wait. But who's saying he's the 6th best? He was the 6th quarterback off the board, okay? Not the 6th best quarterback. He was the 6th quarterback off the board. That's accurate. We don't know if he's the 6th best quarterback. We have no clue whatsoever. He could be worlds better than JJ McCarthy.
He could be
better than Drake May. He could be
Can he be better than Patrick Mahomes? Can he be better than Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert?
Were we saying about Lamar Jackson when he got drafted with the last pick in the first round of that draft? How many quarterbacks went in the first round? 5? Oh, they took the 5th best quarterback. Like, how the hell could they take the 5th best quarterback? Look, what are the Ravens doing? He was clearly not the 5th best quarterback in that draft. So let's stop using phrases that are bullshit. It's total bullshit. We don't know if he's the 6th best. We can talk about this 2 years from now or 3 years from now.
But we do know that going into the draft, there are several teams that had him evaluated as 2nd-round pick, right? There are several teams that had him evaluated. You studied this. They had him evaluated later. Does that mean anything to Sean Payton? No. But realistically, how much of this is just because we love Sean Payton? Like, if a team with a lesser renowned coach makes the same exact move there, are they getting the same benefit of the doubt? I don't think so. I mean, realistically, and not just because of my fandom, if the Raiders make that pick at 13, they're getting trashed for it. The only reason we're not trashing this would be because, well, it's Sean Payton, and he's a quarterback.
We're not trashing it. We're literally just listening to Frank trash it.
Okay, the only reason...
I like the pick. I just don't know that it's necessarily the solution, and then you're just another year down the road. We're talking about quarterback rooms we're worried about. I'm worried that this doesn't work out because where do you go next? When are the Denver Broncos going to figure this out? Maybe it's Bo Nix. Maybe Bo Nix is awesome, great, incredible. He's not the 6th best quarterback in the draft. But as of right now, you look at it and you say, maybe it works, but I don't know.
What was your solution?
A lot of really
Frank?
smart people.
I don't think there was a solution.
I don't think there was a solution.
Like, I think at some point you got to look at it and say, okay, yeah, we need a quarterback, but is he going to be the guy? Because if you're wrong in the first round of the draft that high, to your point earlier, C-Rob, if you're wrong, then all of a sudden you're setting the organization back how many years to figure that out? Like, you better be damn sure that the quarterback you're taking in the first round that high is the guy that you can bank on for the future.
And why, I have no problem with the pick. That? Why don't
they probably do think that? They should think that today. If you're using 12th pick of the draft, you better think that. But doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work out. A lot of people, look, as you've talked about, a lot of people around the league did not have him anywhere near the 12th pick of the draft. Like, and most 2nd, 3rd round quarterbacks, what are the hit rate there?
And everybody loved Kyle Pitts. He was the best. He was the best evaluation at tight end in decades.
Kyle Pitts threw up 1,000-yard season until Arthur Smith ruined him, but whatever. Like that happens.
All I hear is you saying there was a problem without a solution. How dare they draft a quarterback?
No,
when there was clearly no solution available.
I don't mind them taking a shot. I don't know if it's going to work.
The thesis on this is quarterback rooms we're worried about. There is some level of this where it's like, even if it was the right pick in that moment, it's still fair to be worried about that quarterback room. I don't think that's unfair to sit there and say, man, they got a bunch of options from the outside looking in. Maybe Sean Payton can turn around and be a guru with any of them. Maybe he can do something with Stidham that, Josh McDaniels couldn't do. Maybe he can do something with Zach Wilson that nobody could do with the Jets. Maybe those are all things that we can consider. But if you're just looking at how can you not be at least worried about their quarterback room?
That's where I'm at. I like the pick. I actually do. I think they had to do it because you can't sell this fan base.
No,
you have to gamble a quarterback, and maybe it works out, but I'm still worried it's not going to work out. And then it's just another, like, there's so many chapters of this story that are just like, oh, wow, you drafted Paxton Lynch. That's great. Oh, you traded DeFar for Russell Wilson. Awesome. It's just years and years. If this doesn't work out, we're talking about a decade down the road for Peyton Manning where they have no solution at quarterback.
All right, so because we have to go through several teams, we'll shelve this argument for a second. C-Rob, you're up next. Give me a quarterback situation you're worried about.
Carolina, because I sit there and I look at David Tepper, and every single year in David Tepper's mind is a referendum on the quarterback that they have. Every single year. Everybody who's been fired by David Tepper has been fired because quarterback didn't work out. Matt Rule got fired for it. Scott Fitterer got fired for it. Frank Reich got fired for it. He's just going to, I think Tepper is liable to continue to fire people if the quarterback situation does not improve quickly. And you look at Bryce Young, the surrounding pieces, the skill position pieces, you add Xavier Legette, you got Adam Thielen. It's not like Jonathan Brooks, obviously, is somebody who could probably be a weapon out of the backfield in the passing game. So in some respects, they definitely improve the pieces around him. We still don't know how good the offensive line is going to be. But the reason why I'm worried is just because I look at that owner and I know how he watches that position and who he holds responsible for it. And I do think not only is 2024 potentially a referendum on Bryce Young and where he moves forward in that organization, but it's potentially a referendum on Dave Canales and that, that staff. So it's, to me, this is one of those situations where I don't think David Tepper has the ability to be patient long enough to not ruin a situation if it could unfold in year 3. I think if Bryce Young looks in year 2 like he did in year 1, I think there is definitely a chance that David Tepper says, we need to go look for a veteran now this offseason. We need to throw another left turn in this situation because he's shown that is his history. I don't think he's going to change his stripes on this. And I worry about Bryce Young's future. I worry about the coaching staff's future. I worry about Dan Morgan, the general manager, because I think this is a guy that will constantly on a year-to-year basis be dialing in how he feels about the job people are doing solely based on whether the quarterback is succeeding or failing.
Which comes back to an age-old question I ask all the time for fans. Like, what do you do when the owner of your favorite football team is just not a good owner? Whatever that means, right? Like it creates the culture that's wrong, has too quick a trigger finger, whatever that thing is. Like, what do you do if the owner of your favorite team is bad at identifying talent? What do you do if the owner of your team is too impatient? Like, if you're a Panthers fan, part of the just absolute heartbreak you feel right now is you don't feel like you're playing on a level playing field. Like if you talk to the fans down there and you just see how everybody feels about it, they don't feel like their owner is putting them in a situation to succeed. And there's nothing anybody can do about that. See, Robbie, you make a really good point. I don't know what solves, like, other than hitting the lottery and hoping that at some point you get it right, which is a great idea. But man, that doesn't really solve the problem here, which is their owner is not a quality owner.
Yeah, but we're also talking about quarterback rooms we're worried about, not ownership rooms we're worried about. Yeah, David Tepper stinks. He's a terrible owner, but I'm not willing to just dump all the way on Bryce Young yet. I'm giving him another chance because when you look at the Panthers situation last year, it was as bad as possible. Like, they gave him nothing to work with. They look what they did this offseason. Went and drafted Leggett. Win and traded for Deontay Johnson. Spent, I believe, $163 million on 2 guards. They drafted a running back, drafted a tight end. Like, they realized we really did this guy wrong. We're going to fix this and give him a shot. And I'm willing to give him a shot. He looked good in that Packers game, at least. I'm not saying we saw a bunch of flashes, but a year ago, we're all very excited about Bryce Young. The 2 things really worked against Bryce. 3 things, I guess. 1 was the Carolina Panthers situation, which was beyond awful. 2 is the trade. We all say, oh my God, they give up that much to get Bryce Young. And 3 is the guy drafted right behind him. Like, the guy drafted right behind him had the best rookie season I've ever seen for a quarterback. Bryce Young was kind of moderately bad his rookie year. We've had other kind of meh rookie quarterbacks play really well later in their careers. Maybe Bryce Young could do that. He's certainly getting a lot more help, but I do agree with the fact that there's no patience there. There's nothing good about the leadership there. But Bryce Young himself, I look and I'm like, in a better situation, let's see what you got, kid.
I think you hope it's a Jared Goff situation, right? People forget that Jared Goff's rookie season was terrible. He was terrible. Yeah. And, you make the change in the coaching staff, you bring in an offensive-minded guy in Sean McVay. Now, I'm not saying, we're talking about kind of a unicorn hire in terms of a head coach, but that completely changed the future of Jared Goff in the NFL. And then later, Sean McVay tried to end it. And then again, he bounces back in Detroit. I think when you look at Bryce Young's rookie season, I'm not saying that, you wipe this guy out because of how he – it's just that there are few situations where we have seen an owner like – press eject on a quarterback year after year after year.
Charles, do you think he could really do? Like, look what they gave up for him, and it's different between Teddy Bridgewater and trading all that. Wow, that would be. I mean, that's just at that point, the NFL just needs to take over ownership of that team, like Frank McCourt with the Dodgers.
I think back to Bridgewater and something that a member of their staff at that time told me, like, after Bridgewater's first season there, it wasn't even his first season. It was about halfway through. Tepper literally told them, you guys sold me a bill of goods. Like, this guy's not it. And I know he's not it, and we're going to have to move off him. And that's what he became. I mean, it was every single quarterback that went through there, he was instantaneously judging, that this guy is, he's not it. Baker Mayfield's not it. Sam Darnold's not it. Now, I'm not naming off a bunch of great names here.
Right, that's the difference. Yeah.
Mayfield did resurrect himself in Tampa, and how did he do it? He did it with better pieces around him. So I think at some point, what the quarterback room is a function of the pieces around it. And the owner has to recognize that. And he has to go, let me give some time for the pieces around this to affect the quarterback situation positively and not just constantly focus in on that quarterback's not making it. It's the coach's fault. Like, I mean, that's what happened with Reich. He looked at Reich and he was like, this guy is not running the kind of dynamic offense that we need for this quarterback. So I got to fire him. Well, if the next coach isn't running the right offense, eventually he gets to the quarterback and the quarterback. He is probably the only owner in the league where I legitimately do not trust him to sit there and do what Frank just did. Go, what assets did we pour into this? How much went into taking this guy? Maybe give him a little more runway. Then I fully believe that if Bryce Young replicates last year, David Tepper will be in the next offseason trying to figure out who they can get to replace him.
Unbelievable.
All right, so I'm gonna throw one in here on a quarterback situation I'm very worried about, and part of this to me is about the context around the rest of the division, because I'm going to go with Cleveland here, and there's a couple of reasons why I'm very concerned. One, we've all on our separate shows on these podcast channel talked about Deshaun Watson and the problems with Deshaun Watson and the way he's playing right now. I'm only for a second here talking about the football player. The football player for Deshaun Watson hasn't been good enough. We all know that the Browns are locked into this, but where it gets really curious to me is that, frankly, this division is so good. There are so many opportunities in this division, and there are so many other teams in this division with quality quarterback answers. And the Browns, the rest of the roster, looks strong enough to me to be competitive with anybody. So if I'm sitting here looking around saying, man, every year they say, well, is this going to be Deshaun's year? If this is going to be Deshaun's year, you can try, not you being any of us, but I think over the course of the last year, many people could try and justify why there was rust or what needed to be broken through.
Right.
This year, there's no more of that. This is the ultimate you-know-what or get-off-the-pot year for Deshaun Watson. And if it doesn't work, no matter what the financial ramifications are, the Browns are going to have to move on, which creates a different level of pressure for a team that I think is built, other than the quarterback position, to be in the Super Bowl conversation. So I think that I'm absolutely worried about the quarterback room because of the pressure, the conversation, and the absolute moment that is facing Deshaun and the Browns right now.
Do you think, could this be the quarterback version of Odell Beckham Jr.? Because I feel like Odell Beckham Jr. had that beginning to his career. We're like, oh my God, transformational player, Hall of Fame caliber. Look at the talent, the ceiling, all these different things. And then he ran into injuries, other problems. It wasn't like it was just injuries. There were issues between he and Eli Manning. There were issues between he and Giants ownership. And then we've spent the expanse of years and years and years going, and we've finally gotten over it, I think. But when is he going to get back to that player? When is he going to be the Odell we remembered? It starts to feel like that's what the conversation is about Deshaun Watson. Because if he does not break through this year, how many years has it been since he was that transformational player that we thought was going to take over, a top 2 or 3 slot in the NFL perennially at the quarterback position? We're getting pretty distant from that time. And that to me, it starts to feel like that Odell thing where we're like, okay, we're still waiting on this guy. How long are we going to wait on this guy and keep talking about what he used to be or what he could have been?
I just wonder. Yes, Odell, definitely a great comp. We've seen running backs obviously do this. Other guys at other positions, Sean Merriman comes to mind, of a guy who we thought was the next LT and just kind of faded pretty quickly. Has it ever happened to a quarterback? Like, this would be one of one. And I get that Deshaun's situation is one of one because he sat out the year and then the long suspension. We have never really seen that. So there's not a great one for one. This isn't oranges and oranges, right? But I can't remember another quarterback where we legitimately thought Deshaun Watson's a top, even if not 5, he's 6, 7. Like, he was a legit elite quarterback, and he just fell off the planet and never regained that. That's why I'm kind of high on Deshaun Watson this year, because as Fitz kind of alluded to, you can make the excuses for the past few years. Last year he was injured. 2 years ago was the weird suspension year.
I can think of one now. One just popped in my head, actually.
Okay.
Dante Culpepper.
But he had the massive knee injury.
He did have the massive. No, okay, right. But I mean, that is a guy.
Right.
We were like, oh my gosh,
great. Yeah.
He's amazing. And then he had the knee injury, and that completely changed the trajectory of.
Yes, there's been a few. Greg Cook, and I mean, there's been a couple injury related, but I can't, if Deshaun Watson is just this the rest of his career and he stinks and he's cut next year, who cares about the cap hit? There's really no comp for this. It's crazy how far
Frank,
he's fallen.
It's not just, remember, okay, so 2020 is the last year he was great, right?
Yeah.
This will be the 4th year since then.
I know.
And
I
we
know,
can
it's
say, okay,
the
off-field, the sexual assault suits brought against him and all these different things, but then we entered the arena of an injury, a shoulder injury last year. So now we've gone from, here's all these external things that are a problem, but now physically, he had problems physically this season. So if that starts to break down, to me, absolutely. If he's injured, let's say he gets injured again this year, at some point you have to start going, okay, is he just breaking down as a player? Which also occurs. I think it's the off-field stuff. I don't think that's the factor anymore. Now it's on-field. Can he function, stay healthy, and actually put together a full season where he has some chemistry? Or do we have to watch Joe Flacco walk into the offense? It's amazing to me when Flacco walked on the field for that team last year. All of a sudden, I was like, "Oh my God, their offense is so vertical now." Now, granted, Flacco would screw up and throw terrible interceptions, but instantly we're like,
vertical.
We're like, look at Njoku, look at Amari Cooper. Like, it was just insane how the offense was pressing down the field instantly, and I'm like, it looks a lot better than what we've seen out of Deshaun at any point since he stepped on the field for them.
Well, I will say this before we move on, real quick. I'm actually really high on the Browns this year, and I'm really high in Deshaun Watson, just because, we've never seen this before where a guy just falls off the map. And last year, I'm not a big quarterback wins guy. Everybody knows that. But the Browns were 5-1 in his starts. Like I know that I'm not even going to sit here and stand on a soapbox for that. But he was functioning at a level where the Browns, if he stays healthy, go back and look at the second half of that Ravens game. It was unbelievable. The Browns are functioning at a level where if he just stays healthy and plays like he did and maybe gets a little more confidence, maybe that team is the Ravens and the number one seed.
Didn't he play well in the Tennessee? Didn't he play well in the Tennessee game too? Like I believe so. I
can't remember. Like yeah. But I mean, you go back. He had a couple of games where it was like glimpses at least. So I don't root for Deshaun Watson because of every other reason you could tell me. But on the field, I'm actually really high on him in the Browns this year.
Super telling that we're like, I saw some glimpses. Like, dude, you pay? How much you paying this dude? I saw some glimpses.
And I always go back to the baseball thing. Like, sometimes you just get the yips, and when certain guys get the yips, you never get over it. Like, I wonder
how much the off-field stuff messed with his confidence, because you're just looked at differently, right? Like, you have to have that swagger as a quarterback, and maybe you lose that when every single story written about you is you go into 18 different masseuses or whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Especially in a world where they have that much talent and they have a perennial coach of the year candidate, feels like right now is Stefanski.
They're good. The Browns are good. The Browns are a good team. It's just all about Watson.
All right. So if you haven't heard your favorite team mentioned yet, you might not be safe. We got a few more quarterback situations we're very worried about. We'll break those down, but we'll also, speaking of light, when we come back, we'll also give you some teams that we're interested in. We'll do that next. All right, gentlemen, before we get to any positivity, let's get a little bit more negative out there, because that just fires people up. We each picked 2 quarterback situations we're worried about. We got a little bit argumentative about some of them, so only got through one. Frank, you're back on the clock. Can you piss the whole room off again? What do you got? Give us another team that you're worried about.
When you get me and Charles together, man, this is just, we do this. We did the Super Bowl week. We just weren't being recorded in any way. The New York Giants, I mean, this is almost kind of obvious. Like, Daniel Jones is just lame duck walking, dead man walking, whatever, euphemism you want to use. I just don't know. When you're trying to move up to draft Drake May, when you bring in Drew Lock and it's kind of like, is this guy going to be our starter? When you're coming off an ACL injury, it's already like they've checked out. They just don't want this guy anymore. They just didn't like any of the quarterbacks that fell to 6. He's got a shot. I mean, Malik Neighbors is going to help him. He's the number one receiver he's never really had. But I mean, when you already have one foot out the door with Daniel Jones, I don't know how he really reels this thing back in. It'd be a great story if he did, but I don't know that I think the Giants are just out, but they just can't find his replacement yet.
C-Rob, thoughts?
I don't disagree with any of that.
I
agree with Frank.
Wow. What?
History being made. Let me ask you, will we, because a couple of things quick on this. Daboll is somebody that the shine has come off a little bit on the last year. And then also, we started this whole show with a pretty heated debate about Bo Nix, but also JJ McCarthy's out there. Like, I'm just left to wonder if one of those rookie quarterbacks they passed on has some success, especially in a market like New York, especially with the fact that Dable has a little less love right now. I just wonder if that creates an extra level of drama around the Giants this year, C-Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question. There are a number of teams that, if any of these rookies have a level of success, particularly a guy like McCarthy, who there were opportunities for teams that you slid down in the draft enough that there were multiple points. Some of these teams could have traded up to acquire him, and he's going into a great situation as long as, Justin Jefferson gets a contract extension and all the talent is actually on the field around him, could facilitate a lot of success quickly. And we saw, I mean, we talked about Carolina and Tepper, but, Frank kind of touched on it. A big part of the consternation there was because there was another rookie who went behind the guy who was absolutely murdering it. Now, do I really think JJ McCarthy could replicate anything close to CJ Stroud? No. Do I think he could play well enough that the Giants, the Raiders, who I'll get to in a minute, the Seahawks, there's a multitude of these teams could sit there and go, yeah, we had our shot. We could have gotten up there and gotten this guy. Why didn't we? And that becomes the question in the hallway outside the owner's office. So, I think it's another layer in New York that I am curious what the runway is there for Brian Daboll if they don't turn it around in some way, shape, or form with Daniel Jones and at least show the position can be more competent than it was last year. Because that's another one of these teams, and I'll bring it up with the Raiders. I continue to look forward into the window, and I'm like, where are you solving it now? Because you had your shot and you didn't take it. And so now you have to solve it next off season with a veteran or in the next draft, which at least right now it looks like it's a soft draft from the quarterback position. Who knows? We were talking about Jaden Daniels at this time last year being the superstar that he became. But the window's not great for Brian Daboll. I think the front office, I think they'll be fine. I don't think the firings would go across the board, but I think if they struggle again this year offensively, Brian Daboll definitely should be looking over his shoulder.
Okay, so a couple of times now you've said the Raiders. Go ahead, rip the Band-Aid off. Give me another one you're concerned about, another room you're worried about, C-Rob.
I'm concerned about the Raiders only from the standpoint of I don't see either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell being the long-term answer there at quarterback. Like, I think it's just sort of the patchwork. All right, let's get through this season and see how it goes. I did feel that way though about Baker in Tampa Bay last year, and he found a home and put things together. And I see enough from Minshew, and you hear enough. Everybody who crosses his path, they're like they find things to like about the guy, and a lot of his proponents in past organizations will say things like, I just wish he could get a consistent shot to settle in somewhere. And I think maybe he could be an above average starter in the NFL. Not great, not elite, but an above average starter that can deliver success for an extended period of time. Maybe that happens with the Raiders. I feel like they had, again, an opportunity to address the position in this draft. I extend out that window. I don't know where you go with it if neither of these guys is functional. Yes, Brock Bowers, that addition's great in terms of the versatility you bring to your offense. You can be more creative with him. I think you're burning another year of Devontae. And, Devontae wants to be there. Cool. But you're burning another year of his career, which is the candle is very, very, short in terms of what he's going to have left to offer. And Luke Getsy is... I'm a little nervous about, what is he going to be able to accomplish? It was like I flipped out when Bowers ended up there, not because of the quarterback, but because I'm like, I don't know if he's got the offensive coordinator who's going to be able to use this guy, in all the plethora of situations that he was used at in Georgia. So at Georgia. So I don't, to me, it's sort of the combination of window, the talent that's there at the position, and then the offensive coordinator. It does not feel like a fixed situation for me at all. And you as a Raiders fan have to be a little frustrated by that.
Real quick, could I interject? What move did you want them to make? Because I didn't like any move that was really feasible for them. They, apparently tried to get up and get Penix, but Falcons were sold on it for whatever reason. I don't know. But what move, in a perfect world, what move should they have made to go up and fix this?
Try to get above the Falcons,
You're giving up a lot at that point.
Yeah, I get it. I totally understand that. I'm not saying, you could have taken the Russell Wilson route, right? You could have taken a stab on Russell Wilson. I'm not saying he's a long-term answer, but he's better than what you have there, right?
That's what we'd just be complaining about Russell Wilson. We would just interject him instead of Gardner Minshew.
We would, but I have more confidence that Russell Wilson can go out and be an above-average quarterback over the length of an entire season. I didn't think Russell Wilson was that bad last year for Denver. I didn't think was he great? No, he wasn't great. But Sean Payton, part of the problem was Sean Payton just didn't want him. He wanted him out. He wanted him gone. Yeah, even Justin Fields. If they had gone out and gotten Justin Fields, I would have been like, okay, Getsy was there. Fields has, some familiarity with what he brings to the table. It wasn't, a lot of people weren't real thrilled about the Fields-Getsy ties together in Chicago, but I thought over the course of last season, Fields did enough for me to go, okay, let's see if he can build on it one more year. And if the Raiders had taken that shot, I'd have been like, okay, it feels like you are maneuvering in a way that you're trying to swing a little bit bigger than a Gardner Minshew or an Aiden O'Connell. So,
and look, C-Rob, I don't disagree as a fan with 99% of what you just said. In fact, I think you're right. As much as you anticipate how the draft board's going to go, I don't think anybody anticipated that they'd all be gone by the time they got to their pick. And the Raiders certainly were stuck in a situation. Now, they made the best of it. I do believe that. But I'm going to take 2 seconds and just pat myself on the back, because at this point, on both of our respective shows, how many times have I been saying this? I genuinely believe Mark Davis is going to pay Dak Prescott whatever it takes. I have no reporting. This is just pure speculation on my end. But I've seen now multiple people at ESPN that I'm friends with that are running with this. Y'all are stealing it from me, okay? I said it first a month ago, all right? At some point, to me, you're right, there is no answer in the draft next year. But Mark Davis will spend whatever it takes. So if Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew don't work out, I would not be surprised at all to see a number in the $55 million range just thrown out to Dak all willy-nilly. When everybody says, you can't pay Dak that, well, just remember this. The Cowboys only get to where they want to be this year, specifically based on how they address the running back position, by giving more workload to Dak. So the only way the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a division champion caliber team, which I still think they are, if they do that, it's because Dak has a monster MVP caliber year. Again, then they can't franchise him. They can't trade him. They can't do that according to the contract. So what can happen? The Raiders can come over and say, hey, we'll give you a blank check, because right now, more than anything, all we need is a quarterback, which keeps Devontae happy and also prevents you from wasting yet another year of Max Crosby. So that's my only thought that I can use to justify it is Dak.
The only thing that scares me about that is what if it's a swing and miss? What if they put all their eggs in that basket and then they don't
the Broncos
get Dak?
And Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, that is exactly where I'm going with this.
There.
The Broncos were like, we're all in. We're getting Aaron Rodgers. It's going to happen. We're going to get him. They had reasons to think they were getting him. They had reasons to think he was going to. Yeah. Well, they thought this guy's going to force his trade out of Green Bay. We're going to hire Hackett. And then the season ended for the Packers, and the Broncos were like, okay, like, all right, a day has passed. 2 days have passed. Like, what are we doing here? Like, is this guy coming or not? When are we going to get this on the rails? And then in the wake of swinging and missing, they went and made a far worse decision, which was, okay, now we got to sell out and go get, we didn't land this. We're going to sell out and go fix it this other way. And that's how Russell Wilson came to be in Denver, in just a god-awful move that scarred the franchise deeply and has led to them drafting Bo Nix, which Frank thinks is the worst thing that's ever happened.
They fixed it already. The Broncos quarterback room is fine. We don't need to worry about it at all, Charles.
So what you're telling me is that the Raiders are going to bank on trying to sign Dak. It's not going to work out. And then they're going to overpay the recently cut Deshaun Watson. That's going to be my future. I mean, this is
this could happen. I mean, this is and realistically, Fitz, if let's say it is the Dak plan, and I like that actually. I'm like, if that ends up being the answer to this, then I can look back at this conversation we're having right now and go, oh no, what they were doing made sense. They were patient. They played the game for, played it out for an extra year, and they went out and they got their guy, and cool, everything's fine. But I do think it's real that if they put it all there and then Dak decides, yeah, I there are things I love about Dallas and blah, blah, blah. And he just decides, just like Aaron did, talks himself into staying in Dallas. What do you think Mark's reaction is going to be? Mark Davis is going to sit there and go, we got to go. We got to go do something big now. We can't have another year of Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Like, it's like, right? Doesn't it make sense that that's what would end up happening? And yeah, maybe it would be a Deshaun Watson all of a sudden if he's out there.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
This could happen.
Fitz, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, Fitz.
You know what? I'm going to give you another quarterback room I'm worried about, but I'm really going to be thinking about what C-Rob just said the entire time. I will use one more team here on the words. I'll give you somebody we've talked about, Russell Wilson. I'm going to give you Pittsburgh. Again, it's a stacked roster. It's a good roster, but it's also, they've created their own drama, which is Russ struggles for a few weeks, so Justin Fields comes in. Fans are happy Justin Fields comes in. We find out Justin Fields really isn't the answer, and all of a sudden, Justin Fields, after a few games, is out, and Russ is back in, and you end up with this revolving door at quarterback, and it fractures the locker room, it fractures the fans, and you lose a season in a competitive division because frankly, you just had two quarterbacks that you couldn't really settle on either of them, and moderate success will create drama. Like, failure or moderate success creates drama for both of them. The only way they keep the other at bay is if one of them is absolutely great, and I don't think either of them can do that. So, and we're in a world now where even talking about, damn, Justin Fields returning kicks. Like, that's how obsessed people have become. So I am very concerned about the quarterback room for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Frank.
I have a bold prediction here. I'm saying bold because it really is out on a limb a little bit. I don't know that Russell Wilson ever starts a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Justin Fields is going to win that job in August, and I don't want. What do the Steelers have invested in Russell Wilson now and in the future? They give him 1 year, $1.2 million. He's 36, I believe. He's not the quarterback of the future. Maybe in some world where he regains the Seattle thing. Okay, I get it, but he's still 36. He's kind of lost it. Justin Fields offers some hope. They didn't know they were getting Justin Fields when they signed Russell Wilson. They thought Kenny Pickett was going to be their number 2. Kenny Pickett just decided, I'm going to get my way out of town. So they're like, what about Justin Fields? They didn't expect this to happen. They didn't expect that quarterback room. Now they have it. You look at what's the path out of this. You talk about being worried about the quarterback room. Okay, cool. What's the path out? It ain't 36-year-old Russell Wilson. He may be a Band-Aid for you. It's Justin Fields balling out, putting it together as a passer. We all know the athleticism that's there. I think Justin Fields wins that job and he doesn't give it back. Now, I'm not saying he plays well enough that Russell Wilson's never a factor. I don't know about that. I'm just saying the Steelers have so much less invested in Russell Wilson that why not start Justin Fields from week 1 and just see what you got?
Yeah, I think it's you're not hearing people say that, in terms of feeling like there's a chance he might just win the job outright. But I'm with you. I think the talent is there, and the front office, I brought this up on previous shows, loved him in that draft. I think they were huge Justin Fields fans. I think into December, they did not believe the Bears were going to trade him. Like the Pittsburgh Steelers felt like the Bears aren't dealing this guy. They're going to load up. They're going to spend that number 1 pick on, either a premium player to help Justin Fields, or they're going to liquidate it into other picks and they're going to build around this guy. And that's how much they thought of Fields. And not only that, but kind of his arc last season, that they're like, there's no way they're moving off this guy. And then they did. And so, yeah, I think if he flashes that talent that they liked so much going into that draft, and then the upside of, he had moments last season. Like, I get it, especially when you get into what Charles McDonald always says, the good stats, when you really break down the granular stuff that's not just looking at a box score. Yeah, there was a lot to not like about, how Justin Fields operates, especially as a passing quarterback. But as you said, Russell Wilson's not, to me, the long-term answer there. He's not the future. And it is, although I will say the kick return thing to me is just, I was so stunned. I was just so stunned when I heard that.
What the heck are we doing? Like, what the heck are we doing? And here's the thing about real quick about Russell Wilson. Even if he balls out, let's say you start him. Okay, we're giving Russell. He looks like Seattle Russ again. You could extend that guy at 37? You're going to give him, well, I mean, let's say he's a
bold,
Pro Bowl Russ Wilson. You're going to give him $45 million a year at age 37?
Here's bold prediction number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields takes the starting job at quarterback and Russell Wilson returns kicks.
Oh, I'd be all in for that.
Let's go. Come on. Let's go.
And Russ would do it with such a smile. He'd be so happy about it along the way. All right, before we get out of here, because we've done all worry. Let's do a little bit of interesting. We'll just do one each. And interesting. So this isn't worried. This is interesting. Just you got your eye on it, Frank. One team whose quarterback situation to you is particularly interesting.
And I'm going to go with a team that we've talked a lot about, Fitz, and that's Jacksonville Jaguars. What's Trevor Lawrence right now? I mean, he's not bad. And goodness knows, there are a legion of people on social media who will defend him over and over and over and over. It's crazy. But he's just been a guy. If you were ranking quarterbacks right now, where is he? 15th? Like, he's just in the middle. What is he? Now, the excuse for him last year was the high ankle sprain. It all fell apart for the Jaguars when he got hurt against the Bengals. It looked like a really, really bad injury. He came back. I give him credit for that, trying to fight it out for his team. He and the Jaguars weren't the same after that. So maybe you could make that excuse. But, boy, other than the second half of his second year, when he really did look like that dude, it's just been like, I guess, and clock's ticking on that extension. If you told me there's such a wide range of outcomes where if you told me we're talking about this in a year and you said Trevor Lawrence won an MVP, I'd believe it. If you told me Trevor Lawrence ain't getting the 5th year option and the Jacksonville Jaguars are just going to move on, I might believe that too. The range of outcomes are just crazy for this team and Trevor Lawrence, and I just don't know what to make of him at this point.
Think of having to sign that extension right now if you're them.
Right now.
Like,
right. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking,
it's
Charles.
Scary. Like, I would be genuinely frightened of sitting there and going, okay, we're kind of back into a corner here. We either have to pay this guy. Look, if you talk to agents, every agent will tell you who's done a big quarterback deal, hold their feet to the fire, force them to pay you $55 million. Like, just, I don't care what your rationale is. Without Trevor Lawrence, they have to start over completely. Even if the results have been, slightly above average, I would say. Like, it's that's right. Like you said, he had one genuinely very, very good stretch in the second half of 2022. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting spot to be in because of the money. And I think back to, let's not forget, I mean, Baker Mayfield was, and it's a completely different draft pick coming out of college, but he was the number 1 overall pick that the Browns stared at after year 3. And they're like, we could offer him $35 million, $40 million a season, or do we want to wait that extra year and kind of see what does he look like in year 4 before we pull the trigger on this? They exercise his 5th year option. He was terrible in year 4. And then all of a sudden, everything took a left turn in that franchise. I think that could be what happens in Jacksonville. But I also could see them just saying, what are we going to do? Let's just roll the dice with it. We're going to pour everything we can into this kid and we'll force it to work and we'll pay him on top of it. So it's a very, very interesting one.
Yeah. Which is just a reminder of, for all the draft talk we're having, nobody knows. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be can't miss. And right now, we have the weird
thing
idea
about him, can't miss guys of his caliber. Look, number 1 picks miss all the time, but number 1 picks of his caliber, it's very rare that guys aren't at least good. Like it's, if you look at the list, and I remember it was Mel Kiper, who he's been doing this forever. And he put out a list of here's like basically my 25 best prospects I've ever, it was a Trevor Lawrence year. All those guys, if not for like some crazy injury, all those guys had at least some moderate success in the NFL. Like, it wasn't like just Jamarcus Russell, look, I mean,
like Lawrence did too, though. Like, let's not, granted, I would say slide year 1 off the table. I don't ever want to fall because of Urban Meyer. That guy completely destroyed a full season of this guy's career, and a pretty important one, being that it was the first one he had in the NFL.
True.
Year 2, it went. I think it developed and unfolded in the way that made sense to us, given what the thought. Yeah,
go back and look at that Cowboys game. I mean, he looked great in that Cowboys game. Yep.
Yeah, and then obviously, last year it was a rollback of sorts, definitely. But if we're being fair, he was not healthy, and I think there were more injuries there than maybe they even let on. Like, I definitely think there were situations there where he was bothered by some things that weren't necessarily showing up on the injury report. So, and there were other things in that offense. Zay Jones was hurt a large portion of that season. If 2024 looks like 2023, and even if it's injuries play a factor, still to me, I'm like, yeah, I don't. You're
because somebody would pay this guy. The Raiders, if they miss out on Dak.
Okay,
right?
Frank.
Somebody would pay this guy.
It starts to feel, and they weren't the same prospect coming into the league, but it starts to feel a little Carson Wentzy, right? Where you're like, Carson, and then you're like, wait, but that one half of the season he played like he was an MVP candidate, and then and then they sign him to the big deal, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, he's got a lot of injuries, and he's like the play is never caught up. And that's how he flames out. Now, totally different prospects in terms of the evaluation coming into the league.
But I get it. That's a good comp. That's a really good comp where you just like, you're kind of living off a half a season at some point, or prospect status for him. It's just, like I said, the range of outcomes is just unbelievable at Trevor Lawrence this year.
All right, Rob, give us a team you think is interesting.
I mean, it's got to be Dallas and Dak, right? Has to be. Like, it just, I don't, the drama and the soap opera atmosphere that is now built into that situation if Dak Prescott does not do an extension prior to the season. And I think what's going to be interesting here is we're going to watch and see. I think it'll be, to me, I think the cutoff point won't be the start of training camp. I think it'll be, let's see if they come back from Frisco. And because, they continue to work deals in training camp. And I think if he leaves Frisco and he comes back and they continue through the preseason after leaving California, I think at that point it's done and he is absolutely heading to free agency. And that's what the whole entire season will become about. It will become about this being Dak's last year. How does the fan base react to this? Go check out Cowboys social media right now. Like, there are raging, angry fights about like screw it, we should just figure out how to move on from this guy now. I've seen people go, maybe let's get a little bit of a look at Trey Lance, like let him play the entire preseason, let's see what that guy looks like. Yeah, Frank's former MVP candidate.
But you just brought that up just to bring out Trey Lance. Go on.
I did 100%. I wanted to make sure that
I know you did.
Also Cliff Kingsbury, coach of the
year. He was not anyway, he was not.
But yeah, how can you not be obsessed with what happens this year in Dallas with Dak? What if he puts up a season similar to last year, right? Which was an MVP caliber season, top 2-3 in voting, and then has some playoff success. What do the Cowboys have to pay at that point? Is he $60 million?
At least.
Right?
Yep.
I would say let's start at 60.
If Dak Prescott was playing in a different market, we'd look at him totally different. We just freak out about Dak because, he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. If he was playing in a more reasonable market, sorry, Cowboys fans, we would look at Dak and be like, this guy is awesome. Like, he's a really, really good quarterback. Like, again, I do this all the time, and I'm sorry, Justin Herbert, but go compare Dak Prescott's stats to Justin Herbert's stats. You will be shocked. You will be absolutely floored at one guy who gets praised all the time and Dak Prescott gets ripped constantly. Dak Prescott's a really good quarterback. And yeah, if they have that deep playoff run, if he wins MVP, which he almost did last year, 60 is the start, right? Like, Jerry's really gambling here.
I mean, not for nothing here, but I mean, you mentioned Justin Herbert. I'll also add Josh Allen. You got two quarterbacks that their fans are absolutely in love with. The organizations are in love with. They'll pay them whatever it takes. They don't have any Super Bowls. Like, you just don't hear that about everybody else constantly the way you do about Dak. I'll give you one that I think is interesting. See what you guys think. And it's a team that last year had more success than most people thought, but did it in a way that makes their quarterback situation interesting. Because Indianapolis, remember, when they drafted Anthony Richardson, the one knock on AR coming in was that he was going to need reps. He just needed more experience. He had good and bad on his college tape, and the good was sensational. Well, he didn't get more reps last year. Even though the Colts were ahead of schedule, Anthony Richardson wasn't a huge part of a lot of that. So I think it's really interesting to try and figure out what it's going to mean for Indianapolis this year, because I don't think we still know for sure that they've got their future, oh my God, quarterback. We haven't seen enough from AR yet to know if he's going to be great. Is he going to be pretty? Like, we have no idea. So just seeing how he comes back from the injury, but also who is he as a quarterback for a team that now has expectations when a year ago they had none? I think his situation is far different this year than it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, from an expectation standpoint, there's no question, right? I mean, you add A.D. Mitchell in the draft, which I think really rounds out between Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, and Michael Pittman. It's the flexibility, what you can do scheme-wise, how those guys all fit together in the wide receiving, like the route tree is beautiful. I think that, look, Richardson could be an MVP candidate next year, or he could be on injured reserve by November. Like that's the one thing with him is it's like, not only does he need reps, but he needs to figure out how to protect himself, which we were like joking about that last year. And then what happens? He literally ends his season because just the way he plays. And I think there are some very high buying expectations right now on him. And you're right. We have no clue whatsoever what this guy's really going to end up looking like coming off that injury, with teams getting more exposed, by the way, to his tape. That was another thing too, where it's like, yeah, he does all these things really well, but we haven't seen him put out enough tape where defensive coordinators start to go, oh, he's terrible at this. Oh, he's terrible at that. Let's throw this at him. Let's see. There was a time where, remember, Robert Griffin was the greatest thing ever. Like it was it. And then that injury happened and he came back and there was problems with him in the organization. And then, defensive coaches started to figure out his game. He never looked athletically the same again. And that was it. That was all she wrote. That could be Anthony Richardson too.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Colts because we talked about very few reps and all that. The reps he put out there were really good, really fun. Yeah. It's such a lazy comparison, and I'm sorry for doing it, but I watch him and I'm like, this is Cam Newton. He's just been reincarnated. We just started the clock over. He is so much fun. Yeah. But the guy played 4 games and didn't finish 3 of them, if my memory is correct. But now, I mean, that they have such a fun offense. Like you said, the receiver room's really good. Jonathan Taylor's awesome. Takes some pressure off of him. I don't know what to make of Anthony Richardson either, but it could go either way, like you guys have alluded to, but I'm really excited to see what happens. The Colts could be one of those teams where we're looking up in December if Anthony Richardson stays healthy and as good as he was in those limited reps, and we're saying, oh wow, they're going to win a division, not the Texans. Like that's their upside. They almost did it last year with Gardner Minshew. Like we could be looking up at it like, wow, the Colts are 11-4 right now. We never saw that coming. That's the kind of upside they have because if Richardson hits the ceiling. Yeah,
I don't think there's any doubt that of all the quarterbacks who bring tools to the table, he's going to be one of those guys that has the ability, fun, and has the ability to affect such a massive amount of change in a single season. It's wild when you say he only played in 4 games. Like, that's so crazy.
For a guy who had 12 college starts, right? Like it wasn't like he's Bo Nix with 78 college starts or whatever he had. We kind of know what to expect. He's still, going into his second year, he's still this incredible unknown.
Yeah. And it's you think about the was it 12? Is that right? Did he have 12 total in college? I mean, basically, we're still talking 15, 16 games of starting experience at a high level of football. And, we look back at when Trey Lance fell apart, we're like, well, geez, yeah. I mean, once, he didn't play football forever. He didn't have that many starts. He didn't have all these different things. I'm not saying that that's where, Richardson's headed, but the lack of a football profile is pretty nutty. And like you said, Bo Nix having 61 career starts, absolutely insane.
No concerns at all. No worries. It's set and forget it.
Yeah. I'm sure, the Colts are totally fine. They have an owner who's
very reasonable.
Yes. Yeah. No, not only reasonable, but reliable. Like, who knows what's like. What I was like. Yeah. He's totally even keeled. There's never crazy stuff going on around Jim Irsay.
Can we do like an owner rankings one episode
goodness.
Where we just rank them on their level of want to hang out with them at the Thanksgiving room, table. Like that, there's just got to be a nice way to say, like, how crazy are they? Because I think most of them have lost their mind. See, Rob, you can set that episode out since, I don't want you to make any owners mad for the purpose of your job.
I just want to take Jim Irsay and David Tepper and put them in a golf cart. for like, for like 36 holes, and just see what happens with, and there will be the drink jockeys at every, the end of every hole and everything. Like, I just want to see where this ultimately ends up. David Tepper's going to punch somebody in the face for sure. And somewhere between hole 17 and 18, Irsay will just disappear. Like, no one will know gone. Where he went. He'll pop back up after hole 27.
I'm gonna start a fake social media account that's like things owners say, and just follow the whole time. Just tweet out random statements, because I can only imagine that during the course of the day, just listening to them talk will give you a different sense of reality. Okay, we got to wrap. It's been an amazing time hanging out with all of us. This is the theme for the summer, as you will continue to give Voltron-like episodes of Zero Blitz, bringing all the robots together to create one kick-ass robot. That'll be every Thursday, of course. But C-Mac still back, obviously giving you the example list on Tuesday. Do not miss that. So you'll have episodes every Tuesday from C-Mac. You'll have Zero Blitz every Thursday from Frank and I, and then Charles and Jory will rotate in and out. So that's how we're going to handle the summer. It gives everybody the chance to still come at you and hang out with you. We appreciate you guys doing that. Andrew Hart's sitting in with us too, doing great work behind the scenes. Give him a shout out, and be sure to rate, subscribe, review, tell your friends, your family, tell enemies, tell everybody. Hang out with us every single week. Follow us on social media at Yahoo Schwab, at Charles Robinson. I'm at Jason Fitz. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us.